Welcome to Let's Learn Mashinky. All right, welcome. This is Attican, and with this video, we're going to start a new series. We're going to cover a new game. I believe it's really called Mashinky or Mashinky. It's obviously I can't say it. It's a Czech name. The developer is Jan Zeleny, who is from the Czech Republic, and I believe the Mashinka means little train or little machine. Little machine is probably what it means. But at any rate, it's a new transport tycoon type game. With some different economy, different rules than what you might be used to from, say, Railway Empire or Transport Fever. And I've been looking at the game in depth, what there is of it so far. I say so far because right now it's in early alpha build, as you can see from the screen here. And in fact, Jan Zeleny has been working on it by himself for 7 years. But I think he's moved into a new stage now where he's starting to bring people on board to help him with sound and visuals and what have you, and starting to get some traction with the game now that it is available on Steam. So it's technically called an early alpha build. I'm not sure how early it is. I don't know if I'd call it early alpha, but certainly it's not a finished game, but shows a lot of promise. I've really enjoyed playing it in the time I've been studying it here. And I really have been kind of taking it apart, trying to figure out how to play the game. And I hope to pass some of that along to you. But what I want to do first here is just introduce you to the game. So what I'm going to do is go in and start up a new game. And I'm going to use the very simplest settings with the tutorial and the whole bit. And I'm going to use a seed, really clever one. You might want to write this down if you want to play along at home, and I'm just kidding. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That should be pretty easy to remember. So we're going to use the recommended for your first game kind of settings, which makes a small map with very little hills. It's basically a flat map and some industry and towns in a reasonable setting. And you can see here, I'm kind of walking through all this stuff quickly, but there's a lot of options that you get for how you set this thing up. I mean, you can generate a procedurally generated map and use that as your play. People can make custom maps and use that as the basis for your play. And there is and or will be, depending on where you think the state of it is, a world builder, so to speak, so that you can go out and edit and make your own maps. And you can even set up things like how much forests are on our map, how many industries are there? Are they spread out at just a few? Are they everywhere? What have you. And let's go back to our recommended. So we're going to use kind of the tutorial settings at first. And my plan is to really kind of just walk you through an overview in this particular video. And then as we go back through it and we walk through the fundamentals, we'll walk through the various pieces of how you build your economy, how it moves through the different time periods, and things you need to take into account to really play the game well and make the game a lot of fun. So let's get one started here. And the first thing I noticed from when I first got the game, the the maps generate so much more quickly than they used to. So we're going to start with just a basic tutorial, which is just telling us, okay, it's going to give us quests. These quests are over here. It's going to have things for us to do. And then it's just going to walk us through, okay, how do you move around? How do you move the screen, all that kind of stuff. And we're not going to get into all that stuff right now. I'm just doing it to make it go away. There's train editing that you have to do. Now, it gives us a task. It tells us, or a quest, to connect our first line between Los Angeles and Tucson. So let's step back for a second and think about how this game works. So first of all, the game has two modes, if you will. It has this sort of realistic mode, which looks like a real map. Now, you notice there isn't much to this. I'll show you in a little bit one that has more mountains in it, which are pretty nice looking maps. And the flat one like this is pretty plain Jane, but it is what it is. It's a flat map, a little bit easier to play on. But you'll see we can do some pretty sophisticated stuff on it. So you have this mode, and then if I hit the space bar, I move to this other mode, which is really where you do all your building. And this is more like almost like a game board. And that's part of why they call it game board rules. You've got all these squared off kind of buildings or building blocks that you use, and everything is kind of set around how many squares does it take to build something. Like there's a 6x1, that's a typical station. Your track it occupies a 1x1 space. So those little squares are key to everything. Now you can go diagonally, but it is different. You'll see as we get into it. And this is new for me. Many of you probably played, I think Open TTD is a game that's sort of like this, has this same sort of a setup to it in terms of how you build and how you see the world. But this game, you flip back and forth between the two, and so you can see this sort of realistic setting and the one that's more the gameplay. And I will tell you, I tend to stay in this mode almost all the time because I'm not worried about the eye candy. I'm more worried about how you play. So it told us to set up a line, and let's go back and look at that again, and let us click on these cities. I click on its name, it'll take us straight to Los Angeles. So it wants us to connect this city right here, this tiny little town of Los Angeles, which is telling us it has a population of 5 and it produces 5 passengers. That's that population of 5 can produce 5. Okay, so it wants us to produce or connect LA and Tucson, which is over here. So here's Tucson, here's LA, and they want us to build a line between them. Now, what we can do, depending upon how you have your options set, you can have the trains go into a station and kind of magically turn around and come back out, the way a lot of other games work. And that would be basically or just saying that there's a roundabout inside the station that allows the train to turn around. Or you can say, oh, nope, what's another rule you can set? Nope, you're not allowed to turn around like that. No magic turnarounds. We have to deal with that ourselves. So I prefer to deal with it myself. And really the style of play I've come up with is really what I call connected loops. So everything I build is every piece of track is a one-way piece of track, and I connect loops to get all my cities working together. So let's just do what it told us to do. And by the way, this first video, I'm not even going to play the game very much. I've actually got some saves here I want to share with you to show you how we move through the ages, and I'll come back, and don't worry, I will come back later and we'll definitely play the game and watch it in action and see how it works. But just to get us started here, I'm going to build up a station in Tucson, and I'm going to put a station in, which way do I want to go? Let's go over here in Los Angeles. So we're going to run track between the two, just as you expect. And I'd like to keep that coal mine outside of my track, actually. So let's do that. Let's run down like this, then over. You'll see what I mean when I say outside in just a moment. I want to build a loop so that the train can turn around. I want to keep room for the city to grow, and then I want to come back here and make it sort of, it'll look like a double track. It really isn't. It's really a big loop. It just happens to run, some of the track happens to be close to some of the other track. So we're going to run like that, and then we will build a loop at the end of this. There we go. Kill off our little mistake. Okay, now train going in, so we're going to set up everything to be in one direction, and we'll just pick a direction. So let's just have everything go that way and go into the station on that end. So I'm setting signals. These are directional signals, the defined blocks, and you'll see a lot of differences here right off the bat between this and other games that you may have played where there's a kind of a train emphasis. One first thing is that the first thing I notice is that this game is more about the track design and less about the trains. In other words, and I'll try to avoid compare and contrast too much, but if you think about the way we like to play Railway Empire, we set up 2 cities, beer meat line, and we run a whole bunch of trains, right? 3 or 4 in order to get the passenger revenue up. Well, you'll see that this game is totally different. In fact, here I'll just illustrate, and I'm going to come back in other videos and go into this in more detail, but let me show you just how different this game is. I have no trains set up. All I have is a station here. And if you'll notice, there are passengers now lining up at this station. Now, they're not actually illustrated, but we have a counter here that tells us we have 6 passengers. Now, up to 8. So it's growing. We're picking up passengers up to 11 in LA. So we're getting passengers on both sides, but we don't have any trains going anywhere. And in fact, I wish I'd done that. In fact, I will. Here, I'll do it. I'll just to illustrate this, I'll show you. I'm going to put a station in Portland, and I won't do anything else. It has no track on it. It has nothing. And look at that. We've already got passengers to Portland. Well, where are these people in Portland going? Important concept of this game. They're just going. They're not going anywhere. They're just going. So you generate passengers and you take them somewhere, then it really, literally doesn't matter where you take them. You just have to take them somewhere. So let's start taking people. Let's put in a depot, and we'll put it here. I want to run it back a little bit because I'm probably going to use the same depot for everything. But we'll just set it up to be able to go in both directions. And all of our track, with the exception of some of the track around the depot, will be one way. So we're going to set up switches to say, or signals rather, to say, okay, you can come into the depot this way, you can leave the depot this way. So now we've got a circuit set up, and we are going to go out and buy ourselves a little porter, which is a train that costs us the green stuff. The green is money or capital or green coins or currency or whatever, however you want to think of it. But we're going to buy that porter, and it's asking us to actually buy, I think we have to buy Pullman to make it happy. So we're going to buy 3 Pullman and 3 coach. And notice that number right there, that 5.69, that's how long our train is. And remember, we're all using these little squares or blocks. So we set up our stations at their max length currently. There's an addition later, but currently at 6. So we can have a train that's 6 that would fit in there. We're at 5.59. That's beautiful. It'll fit. And if we just started it, it would run back and forth between those 2 cities. But I would rather give it specific orders because it'll get complicated later on if we don't. So here we go. So now we have a train, and notice all those people. See, it's saying station 2 has 88 people, station 1 has 64. So we have all these people wanting to go somewhere. So now we've got a full train right off the bat running between Los Angeles and Tucson. And now we can add on more cities or do whatever we want to do. We could easily add in, let's just say we wanted to run Portland to LA. So we could set up, we've got a big loop that we could connect to easily, and we can decide where we want to connect into that loop. We could connect back into the loop this way. We could connect out here on the end, however we want to do it. So let's just say, let's just run like this. We're going to come out and go into Portland like so. And we can either have we'll have Portland, let's have Portland run in like this. Portland's going to come down and merge and run into Los Angeles. So we'll set up a line between LA and Portland. And keep in mind, it really, again, doesn't matter. These 13 people or 16 people now in LA, they don't care where they go. They just want to go somewhere. Okay, so here we go. We're going anytime, one of my rules that I've come across, I've kind of developed for myself for this game, is anytime that I set up an intersection, I want to have signals. So right here is an intersection. You can have a choice. I want to have a signal there. And I tend to put them on each end of the platforms just mainly so I know which direction my lines are actually running. Remember, for me, everything is a one-way train. So what we can do here, if we want to, we can actually because there's not that many people now, we can take this same train and we can say, okay, I want you to go to Tucson, which is number 1 there, Tucson, then to LA, and then we want to add Portland into that. So I want you to go Tucson to LA to Portland, and we can easily have Portland be able to go right back to Tucson. So again, anywhere I set up an intersection or a change in direction, put in a signal, and now we've got all 3 cities connected. Now, we're not getting a lot of passengers, but boy, we can change that in a hurry by putting in a waiting room. And you'll notice our catchment area for this expanded now. It's taking in all of that. And we can also expand the catchment area with platforms out to a maximum of 6. So the station can be 6 by 6 at this point. So now we've got this whole area. There's our catchment area. And to make it so that we don't lose the city, so that the city doesn't grow away from us out here, we can actually put the roads in and give the city places to grow. And you'll notice I'm not connecting these cities. This is something I hope they fix. Right now, or the streets, I mean, excuse me. Right now, these you can just throw in a street anywhere, and it is a place where a new house would be potentially built. What I hope they do is make it so that you have to actually connect these lines. I would love to see a single point here that has to be connected for the roads to even count for a new house to be built. And let's talk about that. Basics of, and again, well, no, we'll get into city building later on. But at any rate, what we're doing here is we're setting up the first thing we need to earn, which is our money. Our money primarily comes from our passengers, and our passengers come from these passenger stations naturally, and from the expansion that we do based on that. So I think this one, yeah, we'll just stick with that, and we'll just let it grow however it grows for this one. I'm going to actually bring up other saves to show you things that we've done, but I'm going to put in an extension here, a waiting room. Now the waiting room increases the loading speed, increases the capacity by 500, increases the catchment area. It's a big deal. It's a biggie. It really helps you with building out your economy. And I'm putting them in right away because we don't want those 5 passengers. We want 20, and then we want 30, then we want 40. So what's going to happen here is these 3 cities are actually going to grow each other. The largest city is going to generate the most people. It's going to send it to whatever city it goes to next. That city will grow as more and more people come in. That's the basics of how it grows. And then it'll send cities to the smaller one. The smaller one will come back, and they'll just keep going. So they'll tend to grow together, and they'll eventually kind of even out, and they'll all kind of grow together, and they'll make us a whole big bunch of money. So now we've got a bunch of money. So now we go from, and here, let's just go down and see how nice this looks. Here's what our landscape looks like. Here's our train running. Here, let's let it run. Here's our train taking off and running from Tucson, heading over to Los Angeles, I think it was called, and then it's going to go up to Portland. It's very nice. We can follow along with the train. We can ride along on the train. We can do, pretty much anything we want to do. And I think I've got my line messed up. I've got... actually work better. Okay, basically going here to here, I'm sorry, Tucson up to Portland down to LA would actually work better. Okay, so there's our economy, basics of getting the green stuff, the money. Now the next thing we want to get are lumber tokens, which are yellow, and we want to get coal tokens, which are black. And we get those, you can imagine, from sawmills and coal mines and forests, but the main thing is the toolworks. The toolworks is really where those things are produced in the early stages. So we go on and we build that. So let me go get a game. Like I said, this one's not going to be to play the game. Don't worry, we will play the game, we'll show the game. But I want to go back. Now let me save this one. Okay, let's open one up that I have here. Let's go out here. Where's one that we've played for a bit? Here we go. Now here's a very similar map. This is one I've played prior and at a certain stage of the game. Okay, here we go. So let's take a look at what we've got here. Now, you can see we've got similar kind of a setup, the same three cities originally. You notice other cities have popped up. St. Petersburg's a new city. St. Louis over here is a new city. We've got connections down here to two other cities that we've grown. But what the biggest thing we've done now in the second phase is we've started getting these timber tokens or lumber tokens and the coal. And we've actually already started at this point on the next stage, which is iron. But let's talk about the timber. The timber is we take logs from a forest, we take them to a sawmill, we turn them into planks, and we take those planks to the toolworks, and the toolworks creates the lumber tokens for us. So right now, with the way I've got this upgraded, and we'll get into this as well, there's a lot to this game. We've got this foundry going, or this toolworks going with a couple of upgrades. So you can see these are kind of the lists of the upgrades, and these are some of the things that you can build to upgrade. Here, let's just do one. Here's a product storage. We're going to add product storage. So that means that now it can take one plank, one coal, one iron, and produce one of each of those, which is great. That's just 1 to 1. That's really productive. But now it's telling us that this toolworks, now that's kind of been built out a little bit, can take 10 planks and 9 coal and 4 iron ore and produce for us 6 planks or 6 lumber tokens, 4 coal tokens, and 2 iron ore tokens. So that's a very productive place. So here you can see this train's coming in with some lumber. It'll go into this station. This toolworks will use it and start producing lumber tokens out of that. We've got we've got logs going to the sawmill, going to the tool mill. We've got coal going to the toolworks to create our coal tokens, and we've got upgrades on the extensions on this to improve its productivity, and we have to go through all that kind of stuff. We have to set up our lines, but here you can see example of these kind of all these loops that are connected. But if you look at this big maze, it kind of looks like a circuit board, doesn't it? Looks like here's components and the circuitry to hook them up. But everything on here is a one-way track. At least that's one method of doing it, the way I'm doing it right here. And in fact, at this point when I had this save, I was just getting ready to build this connection between St. Petersburg, I think I was going to go over here to St. Louis, and I built a bridge so that I wouldn't have quite so much intersection. But here you can see you can have a whole lot of lines crossing one another and really run pretty smoothly. One of the reasons is because, like I said, this is less about the trains and more about the routes. You definitely end up with multiple trains, and you can definitely get in a situation where you're generating, like for example, so many passengers that you'd be crazy not to run extra trains and take advantage of it. But at the end of the day, you're just running a train to a train. In fact, here's an example of a train that's just going backwards and forwards, because I think when I did this one, you were allowed to do, I want to do this as an example. So up here, I've got the looping, where it's going to go through, take a loop, go to the other city, turn around through the loop, and what have you. But down here's an example of one where the train just literally goes back and forth, and you can play the game this way as well and have that train. I don't recall if this is going to turn back around or go backwards. I think it'll turn around. Yeah, see how it flipped around, now it's going the other way. So that's a setting, so you can set that so that that's not allowed, and then you would have to build a turnaround. And we'll talk about in future videos the different turnarounds, like using the depot, using a WYE junction to make a turnaround, using a loop like these to make a turnaround. So there's all kinds of options you can do for that. So here's this our big circuit board humming along rather smoothly, doing well with our pieces of the economy. We've even gone beyond this now. We've got our logs and sawmill, and we've even gone into an iron ore mine that's and a coal mine that are both producing and pumping things into a foundry. Let's see, where is that foundry that we're using? Sorry, I don't remember. I don't remember. Oh, may not have even set it up yet. Yeah, this is just ready to be set up. So what we would do is pick which foundry or all the whatever foundries are on there we could find, and we would set up iron ore and coal. Again, the supply chain's getting a little more complicated now, both iron ore and coal, and ship it off to a foundry, which is, where is one? Oh, is that it? Oh, here we go. Yeah, it is set up. All right, my apologies. Here we go. Just didn't see it. We've got a coal mine taking coal to this foundry. We've got iron ore being shipped to this foundry, and then we're taking the iron ore from the foundry and shipping it to the tool works so that we can get these iron ore tokens, because you need those as well. And let me just give you an example of why you need all these different things. We find a depot. Here we go. Here's a depot. You'll notice some of the trains cost the green tokens. Some of the trains cost the yellow tokens, the timber. Some cost coal. And some cost a combination. This really fast one costs a combination of, and powerful one, costs a combination of the money, the green, and the coal. So, and then they each are maintained set differently. So some of them are maintained by your green currency. Some are maintained by coal. And then a lot of the expansions that you build on your stations, for example, if you wanted to put a restaurant, you can add extensions to your station. If we wanted to put we'll put a restaurant in this station because it's getting a lot of traffic, and that gives us more capacity in the station, and it increases the income. So if you have 78 passengers coming in here, it's standard fare, they'll make 25% more because of the presence of this restaurant. So what I was about to say about that, those tend to be very lumber intensive. So you need a lot of the lumber tokens to do those. So you really have to build up a very balanced economy of all the different things. So you get your money through your passengers, you get your lumber tokens primarily from logs to sawmills to the tool works. You get your coal by taking coal to the tool works primarily, other ways as well. And you get this iron from taking iron ore and coal to the foundry, making iron bars, then taking those iron bars to the tool works and converting those and getting paid in these iron tokens. So that's kind of an overview of how the economy works, and you can, let's just go look at one that's a little more, even more complex, a little further down the road. Let's look at one, let's see. think I have a good example. This is something he needs to fix, by the way. If you'll notice, as I'm scrolling down in the in my list, I'm actually moving my screen and my orientation of the screen. That's probably not. I don't think that's a feature. I think that's unintended. Okay, here we go. Plus the color. Color's got to be changed. You can't tell what you're picking. But anyway, let's go even further down the road on this flat map. And in just a moment, I'll show you one of the mountain maps and what it looks like and what you can do with it. Okay, so here's one where we're even a little further down the road. We're a little more advanced in our build. Now you can see a lot going on. There's a lot happening here on this map now. We now have you know, strong economy with all these different things. We've got our little circuit board running like crazy. Let's go over to this view. It's easier to see. And again, this is a small map, but we've got lots of cities connected. We're making lots of money, lots of timber tokens, lots of coal, lots of iron ore, and we've introduced yet another one where we are taking oil from oil wells. We're taking that oil to a refinery. Let's see, where's our refinery? I think it's over here. Here we go. We're taking the oil to this refinery right here. We're turning it into, I think they call it diesel. I think that's what that means. But we're turning it into oil or refined oil or diesel, however you want to think of it. And then we're taking that and moving that to a factory. I'll leave this boy right here. Yep. To this factory, and it's being converted into our diesel tokens. And it's also creating yet another thing called goods. We're making goods at the factory. We're also creating a different type of good. They all just count as goods. We're actually making some goods here at the refinery as well. So there's some goods being made at the refinery, kind of plastic goods you might think of them. And there are goods being made at the factory, more like, well, basic consumer goods. And then you have shops in the different cities where you can deliver the goods into the city, and then you make a money off of those by the selling of the goods. So when the goods are brought into your station, the shop starts taking them, and at a steady rate, it starts selling the goods, and you may in turn get paid in more and more money for that. So as you can see, the supply chain just keeps getting a little bit bigger and a little more complex with each thing you do. Your railway network just keeps getting bigger and more complex, and you know, this could get out of control for you if you're not really organized in how you do this. Now, this big thing here that may look like a giant mess to you is very, very, I will have to pat myself on the back, very organized because of the way I've connected all the loops. You know, it's very easy to move goods from place to place. It's very easy to set up lines you have to do. And then you have all these different tasks that pop up, like here we have one where they want us to deliver 200 diesel or oil, whatever that is, within 1 year into a factory. So we have to be producing it at a good rate and shipping it at a good rate. And I will say this, these with one or two exceptions, the tasks that pop up now are basically almost like a large tutorial, because if you just follow them, you can learn the basics of how the game works. But what I wanted to show you now is just kind of that the general flow of the unusual token-based economy and how things expand and expand. And now I want to go back, actually. I want to load up one of the mountain maps and show, because this is where it gets really interesting. This map is challenging just because of, you know, well, there's a lot going on. But you take that lot going on and then you put it on a mountain map where we have, in this case, this mountain map was generated with maximum water, maximum hills, maximum forests. And the forests matter because it costs you more to cut through the forest when you're laying your track. And also minimum cities and minimum industries. So everything is spread out. In other words, this is like a worst case kind of a map. You can see what we have here. This map is sort of, there's a pretty good place down here to connect cities, but a lot of the cities, this city's out here in the hills, very hard to get to. Here's a city up on a mountain, very hard to get to. City up here, it's almost hiding. One here that's hard to get to, but there were three pretty good ones right here, so you can imagine where I started, which is right down here, and set up my line. And here we actually have advanced to the point where I'm running 2 trains, because these cities are getting to be decent size down here in this mountain. And this is pretty early in the game. So up here in the mountains, we've just started our first little supply chain of logs to a sawmill to a nice handy tool works. So very handy for the logs, but then again, when you get to the coal, way down here, not so handy. So to move coal up there is going to be more of a challenge. And that's what's beautiful about these maps, because to build on the mountains, it's very challenging. Even just to lay the track, it's very hard because of the style it uses. There are very definite restrictions about you can go kind of straight up usually, or straight down pretty easily. But when you start crossing over stuff, see how we're getting that cannot move, cannot climb diagonal. You have to learn how to deal with all that stuff, and either have enough money to be able to flatten the earth for yourself, or figure out how to manipulate your track so it works. And it can be very challenging to build like that. And you know, what we want to do is develop a method for being able to play, so that we can confidently go out here and set up a map like this, which is a very difficult map, and then know that we can do it with no additional loans, nothing. You start out with the minimum amount of money, and you know, the least amount of industries, the least amount of cities, and what have you, and know that you're going to be able to handle it. So that's kind of our goal for all this, is to just get the basics down to the point where we can play the game and enjoy it. All right, so that's the start of a mountain. Now let's go look at the mountain at this at a mountain map after it gets moving a little bit, after we've got a little bit more going on. Okay, let's look at this guy. Okay, so here is the mountain map that I think it's the exact same playthrough. I cannot swear to it. It could actually be a totally different one. But here we've expanded a little bit. We've got a second sawmill set up. We've got you know, lumber going into a second sawmill. We've got you know, a little more going on up here. We've got, but you can see as well now you can see all these things that have popped up. New cities here in St. Louis, and St. Louis, a little city of 4, and Las Vegas, a little city of 1, nice and close together. So that's a good deal. And we've got a third city close by, Chula Vista. So there's a nice place to set up some additional income for us, a little more of the green tokens. We've got a nice setup here with the tool works, but we don't really have a sawmill nearby, so we're going to have to run you know, our lumber way over here like this to get to it. So now we're looking at you know, how we're going to run iron ore and coal and into a foundry, and then from that foundry eventually, like a foundry right here's one, over to our tool works to get our iron tokens. And here's an example. Like here, we just, when we did the log project, this is one where we had to deliver 400 logs within a year to any sawmill. We get rewards for it, so I'm going to collect the reward for that. And that's the way these quests work. They give you rewards. They give you a challenge, and they reward you for it in different ways. And of course, the challenges will vary, and I'm sure that one of the big emphasis as they start to finish off the game or polish it more is to set up more varied and more interesting quests that you have to do, and maybe even set up more like scenarios where you have a particular scenario that you want to do, like grow a city to a large size or whatever. And speaking of that, let's look at this mountain map at kind of what you might think of at the end, when we're kind of taking this as far as we can take it, at least in the current alpha state. So here we go. So here's that same map, and we've kept going with it. And you can see that we've gone ahead and connected. Remember those, Las Vegas was a 1, St. Louis was a 4. We've made our connections there. We've even built a big tunnel and connected to this tool works over here that was terribly located. We've connected in the city that was kind of out, Toledo, that was kind of out there by itself. We've grown these 3 cities to nice sizes, and we've got them humming. We've got our foundry working and all that good stuff. We've got we're starting to produce our oil or diesel tokens. And I just want to show you, like, here's St. Louis. Remember, it was a population of 4. It's now a population of 130. So it has grown tremendously. And just from that, and we didn't even use Chula Vista, just from that symbiotic relationship with Las Vegas, and trains just going back and forth between these two, bringing in some mail and what have you, and off we go. And that's another one, is mail. Mail pops up here at one of the ages, and you start bringing mail delivery, and mail helps the cities grow. So you can kind of see, if you open up the city, I don't want the church, I want the city. There we go. The city has a certain amount. Because it's so huge, it takes 1,300 citizens for it to grow another level. In other words, to build another house, or 390 mail. But if you take a little city, Chula Vista, where's that? Here we go. Chula Vista is a 1 city. It only needs 10 people. If we were to set up a line and deliver 10 people into Chula Vista, or some goods into Chula Vista, 2 goods, it would grow and start to expand. So that's how the basics of how the cities expand. But at any rate, here's kind of the end state near the finish of everything you've got ready now in the alpha build. But you can see all the things they had to do, blast through tunnels in order to set up these lines, in multiple tunnels in this one, I believe. There's some bridges, there's all kinds of stuff going on. There's some pretty tough track. Here's a nice little tunnel right here helping us. Here's another tunnel over here. So there's tunnels and bridges and all kinds of stuff you have to do in order to get all this to hook up. And then keeping track of all the supply chain. So it could sound daunting. It isn't. It's pretty easy if you understand it. So I hope to do a series. If you guys are interested, I hope to do a series on Mashinky. I'm going to go ahead, like I said, and hillbilly the name and call it Mashinky. But I hope to do a series on this and kind of walk us through the fundamentals and walk us through some gameplay. And also hope that we can set up a little environment in the community where we can share comments, and you guys can help me improve in playing the game, because I'm by no means an expert on track layout, that is for certain, and terrain editing. I am pitiful. That's just the bottom line. I am pitiful. But I want to improve on that a lot. So any of you who are good at that, please add comments as we go along and help us all get better. And I think we'll enjoy the ride as we play a little Mashinky. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it kind of piqued your interest in the game. And hit that like button and leave me some comments and let me know if you're interested in this one. Thank you.